Hello and welcome. My name is Kanika Khanna. I am the LA chapter director for SoundGirls, and I am so happy to have today with us Helen Meyer from Meyer Sound as part of our Living History interview series. Helen, as a former Meyer Sound intern, rather, I am personally honored that I get to be the one to do this interview. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to see you, and I'm thrilled that you used to be our intern, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it. I did a bit of research before putting my questions together. So I know your first date with John was during the Summer of Love in 1967, and that he took you to listen to Sgt. Pepper's album, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album. So I want to start this interview even before that. Um, Going back on Helen Meyer before Meyer Sound was in the picture. What did you want to originally do when you were still in school? Like, what was your dream job as a kid?
It's interesting. I look back and I wonder, what was I thinking? Because I didn't really have a dream job, but I knew something about music and I loved Broadway albums. And that was what I listened to all the time. And then a lot of other music as well. And, so when I finally came to Berkeley, to UC Berkeley, I wasn't sure what I was going to major in. And I was sort of after the first year thinking maybe teaching, but it was very vague in my head. I didn't have a very strong idea one way or the other, but I knew that I loved a lot of the things in the culture, like Broadway shows and all the music. And yeah, I've been listening to those for a long time.
So something musicy.
Yes.
What did you end up majoring in college then?
Well, I never actually graduated. I met John. I dropped out,
And then it's
but
history.
but I was about to declare it was a major that I could create for myself. I was going to study Russian history, Russian literature, and Russian music. So my family is from Russia, and I thought that that might be an interesting way to kind of absorb that history. And I was about to start that as a real major, but I never got that far.
That's so cool. I had no idea. Um, did you ever see yourself ending up in the audio industry?
I didn't even know there was an audio industry. So I
To be,
never imagined
yeah,
being a part of it because I didn't know it existed.
to be fair,
Until
you helped create it, so there is that. So let's fast forward a little bit to the actual foundation of Meyer Sound. Can you share how you and John started the company?
Well, it was John who decided that he wanted to start a company. But before that, he had been working for other audio companies. And that's how I knew that audio was a business and how he was creating products for those other companies. And then he literally came home one day and said, "We're starting a company." It was just like out of the blue for me. And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Yeah, I want to do things my own way. I don't want to work for someone." And I got the ability to create. And so he literally said, "We've rented a space in San Leandro and we're going to start a company." And I said, "Well, our kids were little at the time. They were young." And I thought, well, I need to be home with them a lot, but I could work part time. And I said, I want to be part of it. And, because otherwise I would not have any idea what he was doing. So that's how it started. He literally came home one day and said, "Let's do it."
And off you were to the races.
He rented a space, and yeah, and then we were lucky because he had contacts with the music industry and artists in the Bay Area. So we kind of brought those people along, and that's how we got started.
I love that. So what was your role during the early days of development, and how did this evolve as the company grew from you two to what it is today?
When we started in 1979, it was John and myself and one other person. And then that grew to one more person after that. So it was four people. And I took on the role of doing all the practical things because these three guys were all into technology and building things. And I said, well, okay. Oh, yeah. Because John came home one day and said, "I think we're going to sell a system to the Jefferson airplane." And I said, "Great. What's it called? And what are we going to charge? What's the price?" He goes, "I don't know." It's like, okay, wait a minute. We need prices. We need, where we're building things. We need to know how to do accounting. We need to do purchasing. So I took on the role of all of that: secretary, purchasing, admin, thinking about sales in a more, standard way. So that's how I got started doing the practical things.
I do remember seeing the early pictures of him wandering around the speakers and parking lots while all the design stuff was happening. Um, do you have any lessons you would want to share from this time during that time of the company founding?
Well, it was a very scary time in the sense that we didn't know if we were going to succeed, and it felt good for the first year, and then we got into some trouble with there was a legal thing that happened that a company said they wanted to take over everything we were building. We had a lawsuit. We had to deal with that. So every year was sort of like, okay, we did another year. We did another year, and um, I think that what I learned in that period was that you just have to, communication's really important. Communications with internal groups, because we were growing a little bit. Each 6 months or year, we were taking on one or two more people, um, and we had to learn how to create, some structure within the company,
Yeah.
because there was no structure really at the beginning. So I would say that it's important to have a structure and to maintain good working habits. And one of the things that John started from the very beginning is that we are going to be honest about what we are building and what that product does. So it was always very clear to have very clear specifications and clear documents, and we were kind of looked at like, what are they doing? Why are they doing things the way they're doing? Why do they have a speaker with a control unit? What was the control unit for? Well, that was to make it all, work better. But we had to, I think a lot of our challenges were how to communicate what we're doing to the industry, to our customers.
Did you find that you had to do any communication internally as well, especially as you were bringing people on board?
We've been really lucky. The people we brought on seem to just understand and want to work with us, and they've got the right attitude, and we didn't have any real problem that way. Everyone seemed to just sort of jump in, and John is very passionate about what he does. He brings people along, so that part of it was good.
That's awesome to hear. So, what would you say, were there any barriers or challenges that you faced as a woman during this time? How would you say you fit in or stand out as a woman during this period?
Well, in the early days, in the early part of the company, there were definitely challenges and definitely very uncomfortable positions that I found myself in, where I was asked, well, why am I in this meeting? I mean, aren't you just the secretary? Sort of diminishing me. That happened quite a few times with different groups of people. It's just because women are just not, at that point, they were just not considered really high level at all. So they just assumed that I was like, just taking notes or something. And I was not. I was a principal in the company. So it was awkward. There were definitely awkward times.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why we're interviewing you for this series. You are one of the pioneers who was there at the beginning when there was probably less than 1% of women in the industry. And even now, I think the statistic is either 5 or 3%. So it's getting better, but there's still work to be done,
Right.
and
Right.
we're all trying our best to make that happen. Um, I've heard a lot of engineers mention over the years that at some point their significant others told them to either spend less time on the road or that the relationship was over. You and John have a unique situation because many couples can live together, but not that many can also work together. So, how did you and John approach collaborating as a business and also as life partners?
Well, I wanted to support John, but I also wanted to contribute to what we were doing. And I think from the very beginning, it was very clear that I wanted to take on certain aspects of the company that John had no interest in. So we've always had this separate kind of, separateness in terms of what is happening in the company. So from the very beginning, I took care of all the admin, all the sales, all the purchasing, all the accounting, and John was doing all the research, technology, operations in terms of, building everything. And we've continued doing that all these years. I respect him for all the technical brilliance that he has, and he listens to me about things about how our customer relations and accounting and all the sales we do and strategies. And so we didn't agree about everything. Of course, we've had our moments where things are just, I'm going, why are you doing it that way? And he was going, well, you don't understand. But we've managed to keep that all pretty well separate. And then I think for both of us, I think our kids came first, always, so as we were, we were young parents, and so our kids were small, and I wanted to make sure that I was always home when I needed to be. So, and we didn't work remotely then, really. So if I wasn't in the office, things, didn't really happen. So it was a bit of a challenge, logistically with the kids and everything. But yeah, so we've kind of kept our stuff separate.
And clearly it's been working because we're almost at 50 years now.
Yeah, still working.
And that ties into my next question. Were there any challenges you faced running a business as a mother, especially with young kids and starting from the beginning when they were still young?
It was a big challenge because I always knew that they came first. So, if there were ever things that they needed to have in terms of, driving them to school, all their lunches, all their, field trips, all that sort of thing you have to manage. It's a huge challenge because, and then when we did finally go on business trips and I'd have to leave the kids, and like, who did I leave the kids with? And my mother was around part of the time, but not all the time. And, there was a lot of, and that was a huge, it was a huge, a lot of anxiety for me, a whole lot of anxiety, just in terms of being separate from them. They would have to come home sometimes on their own when they got a little older. I didn't like that. I don't like being, at first we were in San Leandro, and that was quite a ways away. And, so there was a lot of anxiety, and it was hard. It was really hard. And it was looked at, like, what is she doing? Is she in business, or is she some mother? Or, there was a lot of anxiety.
And I mean, especially at that time, I would imagine there weren't as many women in leadership positions like you were at that point. And it takes a village. So I really hope you had the support network you needed to make it all work out.
It did. It did.
That's good. But I mean, looking forward, since that point, Meyer has a legacy of almost 50 years and is still going strong. And you are very much a foundational part of that legacy. What, at this point, do you consider Meyer's greatest contribution to be to the audio industry?
Well, I think that from the very beginning, we created products that were unique in their ability to do what the artists wanted. I mean, and we've always had a close relationship with artists. I can look back at so many of our products that were influenced by a particular artist who needed something, and we could create a product for them. And then that product became one of our standard products. And there are, all the way through all those products that we've built, I think I'm so proud that we are able to listen to the artist and create what they need, because it's all about making sure that what they're putting out is exactly how they want it to be. And I know that, early on they were dealing with all sorts of, distorted products that didn't do what they say they were going to do. And like I said, we've always wanted to make sure that our products are used the way they should be used, and that we tell people this is what they will do. These are the specifications. So I'm proud when I look back at all those products and how they're being used. And some of them are actually still in use, which is kind of incredible. So, not a whole lot at this point, but there are some that are still out there. So, I'm proud of the quality that we have created in our products.
And one thing I've just observed over my years in relationship with the company, it's the benefit of a family kind of business, in the sense that you're agile enough that you can respond to the individual artists. And it's clearly paid off in the long run from what I've seen.
Oh, thank you.
So another side of what you and Meyer are known for is your contributions to all the philanthropic work that you do. Between the work you've done at the company and what you do philanthropically, what would you say you're most proud of?
Well, I mean, certainly the work at the company is, our focus, our prime focus, but being successful means that we can support these arts groups that we feel so strongly about. So here in the Bay Area, I feel very strongly that if every company should have the ability to support the arts. And so I've, helped with things at Cal Performances at the University of California campus and San Francisco Opera and the San Francisco Symphony and a number of things that just feel very, they resonate with me because these are the organizations that promote incredible art. And, so we've done things in the Bay Area and beyond up to the point that we can do it. We can't do everything. And so it's just been really a small amount every year, but it's something that I feel strongly about.
I mean, taking part in the local community, what better way to contribute? What do you think is what do you value the most, and how do you think that manifests in how you run the business?
I think I've said it again before. It's being honest. It's being open. It's being real. It's like this is what we're doing. Here are the opportunities to bring the right people into the mix of. We're very, very lucky. We have incredibly talented people, and I'm not doing it all myself anymore at all. I mean, so much of what I used to do is now delegated to all the amazing people that work with us. And I'd say that it's just really important to keep that feeling of everyone being part of what we've decided to do, and being able, as you said earlier, to be able to move forward quickly if we have an opportunity. That's one of the things I think is one of our big strengths is, someone can come to us and we can say, I think we can pivot. I think we can do it. And of course, I'm usually the one in the company. I'm the one known to say yes most of the time. John will often say, "Oh no, that's going to be hard," and other people might say hard. But I'm going, "Let's do it." I'm the one that generally says, "I want to get it done." Yes, and I think that spirit of collaboration, and that's part of the culture of our company. It feels really good.
This is reminding me of times when I was, again, an intern and saying, we should ask Helen about that. I think I've heard that a couple of times. Um, there are plenty of young women, myself included, who look up to you and other trailblazers as inspirations and role models. What advice do you have for them as they develop their careers?
Well, I would say that the things that all the young women are able to do right now are much, much different than when I was that age. I'd say that in order to keep that momentum, everyone should be honest and open and flexible enough to like listen to what is going on, because they're, in this industry, people have various, various points of view. And so I would say keep an open mind, but stay strong to what you can do as a person, what you can contribute. Keep that clear in your mind. Don't try to do more than what you're good at, but keep that focus, and don't get distracted with things that other people might think you should be doing. You should be doing what you love, what you're passionate about, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think that's one of the big things to be, ask questions and reach out to people like me or other people if you have, concerns, and we could tell you what we did way back then, and just try to help you, because
There's plenty of experience to pull along.
I'm excited about all the young women that are doing a lot more now in the industry. It's really great to see that.
I'm going to give a shameless shout out to Katie Murphy, who is one of my absolute favorite people of all time, and she knows it. Um, so, yes, absolutely. Um, what tools would you recommend for women to move their careers forward? A lot of us are engineers, but we're also essentially running ourselves as a business. And as you mentioned, you kind of started Meyer with dealing with the practical side of the business. What are things that you would recommend for others?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not really sure what I would recommend as far as tools. Well, certainly, I think people now need to be more tech savvy. Obviously, I'm having trouble sometimes just getting on to a call, and I think that young women today are definitely more tech savvy, which is important. You have to know how to manipulate all of these various software and firmware tools that never existed when I was, when we first started. So that's important. And I think just being, well, certainly learning enough about business. I didn't know anything about business when we started. I really had no idea about how a business is run or how one keeps track of things. I've sort of learned it you know, as I went.
As you went, yeah.
Yeah, and so certainly any background you can get in just general business practices would probably make a lot of sense. And then to look at all the opportunities there are in terms of internships and, working with different companies and providing, the strengths that you feel you have. I know. So when you're talking about Katie, I mean, she's great because she knows exactly how good she is at her designs and her engineering, and she also has that ability to work with people you need to be able to work with people and see their point of view, manage things well. Those are all good tools to have.
Very true. Um, have you seen the role of women in pro audio shift since you first started the company with John?
I have definitely seen, yeah, the roles are much more. I mean, you see many more women in leadership roles. You see many more women doing engineering and technical careers. Um, I think our first experience with that was way back when we worked with Lily Tomlin
Mhm.
on her production of Search for Intelligent Life in the Universe. Is that the way? Is that the title? I think so. Um, and her whole team was women, and I had never seen a whole crew, everyone in her production, our whole backstage, all crew was all women, and I thought, yeah, this feels really good. I mean, these are strong, clear-headed, thoughtful, knowledgeable people, and I've seen that grow from that period on. I mean, it just feels like I've seen a lot more of it, which is great. Really terrific.
That's honestly reminding me, one of the things I love seeing as part of the LA chapter director is we'll get requests for female engineers because there's trans or queer LGBTQ plus community artists who are looking to create a crew that matches them, not just what is currently out in the industry. And that anytime I see one of those requests, I also get a little heartened too, knowing that they're going into it purposely trying to seek something more diverse.
Exactly.
But having said that, what barriers do you think still exist in the industry, and how can we better support women and underrepresented groups?
I think there are a lot of barriers still. I think there are a
Mhm.
lot of male dominated fields that either are part of the audio industry or intersect with the audio industry where, you know, women are not looked at as experts as they should be. And I think they're not treated as well. And I think that still exists today, not as much as it did a while ago, but you definitely see a certain attitude with a certain number of men who just don't treat women well, no matter what they're doing. So there are definitely barriers. Yeah, definitely.
Having been through some of those myself, what would your advice be to someone if they're facing one of those situations? Like if you feel like you're not getting the right kind of treatment, how would you handle that?
Um, it's difficult. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. Other times there are ways that you can try to have a discussion with that person who is, doesn't seems a little bit blind, to what you're
Yeah.
able to contribute. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a real good answer for that. It's a case by case, case by
And
case.
that's totally fair. It was a selfish question since we've all had to deal with those scenarios. Um, but yeah, I think we're kind of coming up on time over here. So thank you again so much for sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. I do have a few more fun questions to wrap things up, though. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Hmm. To my younger self. Well, that's a good question. I would say that I was probably a little too maybe I should have been a little more willing to take on more risks. I've always been kind of, I mean, even though I'm the one that says yes to a lot of things, there's also this side of me that just doesn't want to take too many risks. And maybe I didn't need to be quite so afraid of leaving the kids to go on a business trip. That would be very, very, very hard for me. And, trying to be a little more relaxed, I'd say that's what I should have been. I was not terribly relaxed.
Well, from what I hear, the kids turned out all right.
I
So
think they turned out okay. Yeah.
this is going to be a tough one to answer, especially because Meyer's gotten to work with so many amazing artists over the years. But what would be your favorite show and or band? Because I know
Oh,
that's going to be hard to
boy.
choose.
That's really hard because over the years, of course, we've had a lot of opportunity to be, involved with a lot of incredible artists. I mean, in our current kind of stage where we are, I mean, we love working with Ed Sheeran, with Metallica, with the Dead, with people like Claire Chase, who's, in her own world of amazing classical music or new music. It's just, we've had a chance to work with Gustavo Dudamel. I mean, these are incredible people and artists who are just, on the cusp of just absolute or are brilliant. So it's hard for me to say. Over the years, I've just loved working with everyone that, has been part of our family.
It's safe to say there is no good answer to that one. I had a feeling when I was writing the question, that would be the case. Last one for you. How do you hope that Meyer Sound will continue to shape the field of audio in the decades ahead?
Well, we certainly hope that Meyer Sound is a sustainable company that continues to even beyond us. We have incredible people who are able to create with John's philosophy of how a product should be built, and so I think that there could be multiple years and generations of incredible products, and that's my hope that that the company continues like that. And I think I still think we're just barely scratching the surface of things that we want to do. There's so many new things that are happening, and we're not tired of innovating. We want to continue innovating no matter what.
50 years young, I think, is the way to
Exactly.
think about it. Well, Helen, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I think that's all we really have time for today, but this has been absolutely fascinating, and I'm very grateful to be able to have asked you all these questions. Um, so yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been really a pleasure. I'm honored that you asked me. I love what SoundGirls does, and I think this is all terrific. And you've got an open door to Meyer Sound if anyone has questions or wants to come for a tour. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you tuning in, thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video in this series.